Hello, I'm James Harvey, the professor of music theory at the College of Southern Nevada with 5-Minute Music Theory, and we're going to start this timer and talk in this video about secondary dominants. Every function that we've talked about so far, we've only talked about its primary function, what it usually does. But most other chords can actually have a secondary function as well, or as specifically the dominant ones can have secondary functions. Those are the most common. So before I really get into it, I'm going to play a tune that probably all or most of us recognize. Okay, the very beginning of the Star-Spangled Banner. It's in C major, but you notice at the very end there's an F sharp followed by a G. F sharp doesn't belong in C major usually. What's happening is that the F sharp is serving as a temporary leading tone to G, and it's a part of a secondary function. So let's look at what those might look like in C major. Let's write a grand staff. And then we're going to write in C major. So what we're going to do is we're going to write what's called a 5 of 5. So we're going to tonicize a dominant chord here. The dominant chord in C major is G, and I'll write that G as a chord symbol as well, just for our demonstration. So I'm going to write a dominant of the dominant. So we're going to temporarily treat that dominant chord as if it were tonic. So for these two chords at this moment, we're actually in the key of G, not in the key of C. So let's actually go backwards, and I'm going to write the G chord first. And I'll do that voicing for the G. And then think of what a dominant chord would be in the key of G major. In G, the dominant chord is D. So this is going to be a D major chord. And then we just need to voice it appropriately. D is a common tone. F sharp works well here. And we do need to write the F sharp. I want to talk for a second about the spellings of these as well. And there we go. We have a 5 of 5. So just for a very brief moment, we're actually borrowing from the key of G major. And that's why there was an F sharp in that Star-Spangled Banner. It was serving as a temporary leading tone. Now you have to be really careful when writing secondary functions because there will almost always have accidentals in these chords. Not always, but most of the time. So there is an F sharp here, and if we want to depict that in the figured bass, we have to put the sharp there. So 5 of 5. Now if we happen to be going to an inverted dominant chord, so let's, instead of it being in root position, let's write that G chord as a dominant 6. So it's going to have a B in the bass instead. I'll voice it, although I don't really need to worry too much about it. Actually, I'm going to voice it a little bit differently here. How about let's do D up here, and then we need a G, and then if I can, I'll try to Savoy. Got a little bit of a leap there, but it's not too bad. But what I wanted to show was that even if that dominant chord is inverted, like the dominant 6, we don't depict that here. It's not a 5 of 5, 6. It's a 5 of 5. And notice that I do use the numbers for these. I do this in my classes. That's because it gets to be a little bit of a mouthful if you're saying it's the dominant of the dominant. It's a 5 of 5, and we're not going to get confused with any other numbers in these. So this is an example of a secondary dominant. Secondary dominants can be inverted, though. So let's say that we want to go back, and actually let's see if I can back it all the way up to where we had the root position. There it is. And very quickly I'm going to try to rewrite this chord as a 5, 6 of 5. So that's going to be a D major chord with an F sharp in the bass. Make sure you write your accidentals. And then D, F, A. D is the common tone. And then A, it works well there. And there we go. Whoops. A, like that. Okay, voicing for that as well. So if you invert the secondary function, then you do write that because that chord is inverted. But what we're doing is we're aiming at the dominant function. So even if the dominant chord is inverted, we don't indicate that in this chord. So 5 of 5 is the concept of a dominant chord tonicizing another chord. And remember, what we're doing is we're treating that second chord, the dominant chord, as if it were tonic very temporarily. After that chord happens, after it articulates, it's no longer treated as a tonic chord. It's just this very brief moment that we're sort of borrowing from a parallel universe. Thank you.